This is the disembodied voice of Dan St.Yves, and today I am with Aaron Conrad, who is the director and head choreographer, fight choreographer I should say, for Scorpio Theatre's new production of Cry Havoc 3. It's running February 13th to 21st at the Pump House Theatre. How you doing today, Aaron?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's cold outside and I don't like that, but other than that I think we're doing well.
Well, thanks for taking a few minutes. I know we're getting close to the opening here. I imagine there must be a little bit of mayhem trying to get everything finalized.
It is a little crazy right now. We load into the theater. We move from our rehearsal studio into the theater tomorrow afternoon. We take all our biggest set pieces over, and then the day after is when we load over all the other stuff and get the theater built and all that jazz. So it's kind of hectic. All that technical side stuff is coming together. Plus, you know, there's all the tightening of the screws in the actual show itself, which is, like you said, mayhem, I think, is a pretty good description of what the rehearsal hall looks like these days.
So when do you get to breathe again? Is that after opening night?
In theory, I think you know, as my direct, that's when I get to take off my director hat and kind of relax a little bit there, because at that point, you know, the die's cast, the show's the show. But I'm also in the show, so at that point I get to put down the director's hat and just be full-time cast and be excited and have audiences and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to only having one job to do.
So Cry Havoc 3. If you've missed 1 and 2 in this franchise, are you left behind with 3?
Not at all, not at all. There might be 1 or 2 sort of throwbacks to the old ones that are, they're the more homages for the people who have seen all 3, but you'd never notice them if you didn't know. It's like an Easter egg, just a few of those in there. But no, each of the play itself is actually a series of small vignettes. Each one is about 5 to 10 minutes long. And each one tells its own story with its own characters that results in or circles around some sort of fantastic stage combat. So ultimately, if you didn't see the first one, doesn't matter, because none of the scenes in that one are in any way related to this one. It's not a through narrative.
So tell me a little bit about the concept behind this, and how did you discover, obviously on your third installment, how did you discover the appetite for that here in Calgary?
Well, it's a very strange story, and the original Cry Havoc came actually from some really difficult circumstances for us. At the time, this was in 2008, was when we did the first one. We were at the time operating out of a theater called Dancer Studio West. And we'd been on the wait list to get into the Pump House theaters for about 5 years, I think. And at the time, the only way to get a slot was if somebody else gave up theirs. You know, somebody died and you got their slot. And we got a call. I was actually out with the then artistic director, Dan Gibbons, and we were just out having a coffee, and he got a call from the Pump House saying, there's a slot open for these dates, take it or leave it. Which was directly opposite the show that we were already putting up. So Dan says, we have a weekend to get a show together and program it, otherwise we're going to lose the slot and we'll be back down on this stupid waiting list again. So years before that, I had seen, and I think he saw it as well, a show at the Edmonton Fringe called Friday Night Fight Night, which was all the U of A graduates who had taken fight choreography workshops, just doing a little, hey, this is our final projects and we'll stitch it together and make a little show. And we always thought that that would be a really interesting sort of concept for a larger production, but you know, you never get around to it. And in that circumstance, we went, you know, we could do that. We could do that. It doesn't take, you know, we can get a bunch of our friends who are playwrights, have them each just write some very small scenes. I can do the choreography. We already have weapons left over from Three Musketeers and a couple other productions. Let's do it, I guess. And at the time, I think it was really just intended to be a placeholder, right? Just put something in there so that, you know, we can keep the slot and we'll sort it out later. And the audience reaction was huge, huge. People just went crazy for this show. And I think it's just because it was so different and so sort of like, what the heck was that? and you know, we always say that one of the laments I always hear from my fighters and even myself is that, you know, we're trained to do all this really cool stuff, but there are very, very few scripts that actually allow you to do any of it. So we're like, well, why not show off a little bit some of the stuff we can do? I can swing a broadsword and do a backflip and all that. Why not? You know, because people think you can't do that stuff on stage. They see that kind of action and they immediately think film.
Yeah.
Right? And so we sort of set out to say, no, you can totally do it on stage. Let's do it. I'll show you. Prove it. You know. And I think people being 5 feet away from somebody, you know, being hit in the face with a folding chair, going, right. And I think that was really exciting. And so then off we went. Yeah.
It's interesting. I've teased actors, not teased as in made fun of, but just just point out things on their CV that stand out, and quite often you see stage fighting. So it's a unique opportunity, as you say, if you don't get a chance to do it often, to put it all together in one production.
And I mean, it's bad enough for all actors, because again, there's not that many scripts that actually do have anything more than maybe a sword fight or two in it, and it's 10 times worse if you're a woman. Because most female characters, especially the classical female characters where you would find sword fights and stuff, they're never going to pick up a sword. And even in this show, we have 3 female fighters who are just amazing, and I'm like, it is a tragedy that you ladies aren't on stage kicking asses all the time.
How scared should we be with some of the realism in the fight sequences?
It depends. There's certainly nothing too gut-wrenching. We did Reservoir Dogs a few years ago, or last year I should say, and that had like a real live action, I tortured a guy to death on stage sort of business, right? Because of course the script demands that. And that I know was pretty harrowing for some of our audience, but we don't go quite that far in anything. The combat is very fast and very tight, and sometimes it's funny, but there are certainly some scenes that are a little darker and a little more serious, so you should be ready to flinch a bit and maybe be a bit uncomfortable, but I don't think there'll be anybody needing to excuse themselves.
You've got 6 playwrights, 4 choreographers, and 10 highly trained fighters, 3 women and 7 men. So has anybody walked away before the show opens with an injury yet?
Not yet. I mean, scrapes and bruises.
Yeah.
That's sort of part of the formula. Everybody's been training very, very hard, and you work these fights really, really diligently and often. We always joke about, okay, run your fight 10 times, and then when you finish that, just run your fight 10 times. You know what I mean? To keep it to that sort of level of safety and precision and all that. But again, scrapes and bruises just from rolling around. You're being pretty active, and that stuff happens. I think the biggest quote-unquote injury we've had so far is, I think I smacked my elbow at one point and gave myself a pretty nasty bruise, and I'm sure at some point somebody's gotten smacked in the face and just went, oh, that sucks. But nothing too serious this time around so far. I always say it's sort of like baseball, in that baseball isn't in itself a contact sport. There's no hitting, there's no tackling or anything like that, but still at the end of the day you're running as fast as you can and throwing balls and swinging bats, and sometimes you're going to get scrapes and bruises, and sometimes, very, very rarely, you might actually see an actual injury. All you can do is, with training and equipment, try and minimize that to as close to 0 as you can go.
And have the medical personnel on.
And be prepared to deal with it if it happens.
So I was checking out some of the pictures you've got. You've got a great website, but you also have a great Facebook page where you've been letting this thing grow and bubble up, and there's some pictures from Citrus Photography that you've posted there. It looks like there was a tremendous effort put into the costuming for this.
There is. Our costume mistress on this show, her name is Tawny Barton. And for any theater humans out there, if you ever have an opportunity to work with Tawny, you should. She's crazy. I mean, she knew that this was going to be a bit of an undertaking, but I don't think even she really realized there's over 72 costumes in this show, which a lot of them are armor and chainmail and stuff like that. And with quick changes, because the scenes keep coming, a lot of times it's, okay, I'm in jeans and t-shirt and I need to be in that full suit of armor in 45 seconds. Let's do this. So yeah, and so much of it is custom built and specifically sewn and all that. So between Tawny, our costume mistress, who's arranged and built so many of the costumes, and Ian Pond, who has fabricated so much of our armor and all that, like, it's been crazy. Our rehearsal studio, the one wall is nothing but costumes. And I think anybody who comes out to the show will find spectacle just in that stuff alone.
Yeah. As I say, you can actually watch the fitting for the armor and then the armor development, so it's really something else. And over 70 costumes. It's just insane.
It's huge. Well, and when you consider, I mean, you have 10 actors and you have 14 scenes. Not every scene involves every person, obviously, but just some quick math says, well, if even each of those people only has 4 costumes, all of a sudden you're at 40, and you add in a bunch more and a bunch more just for scenes that have multiple people and scene changes, and it just, yeah, it gets pretty out of control pretty quickly.
Now, we have mentioned, or actually you brought up earlier there, that there is some moments of humor in it as well. So it's not all just...
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, with I think any violence in general, I mean, we see it can be funny, it can be harrowing, it can be something in between. You know, when you watch Looney Tunes, you know, Elmer Fudd shooting Donald Duck and blowing all the feathers off, and that's funny, you know, or somebody stepping on a rake and smacking it into their mouth, that's funny. But if you did that exact same thing in reality and lost a tooth and broke your nose, that's less funny. You know, it all really depends on context, right? You can have a sword fight that is really gritty and really ugly and really scary in some ways. Or you can have a sword fight from Robin Hood Men in Tights, which is slapstick and silly, right? So yeah, we try and express both of those sort of extremes and everything in between, right? Because ultimately, I don't think any audience wants to just sit there and be down in the dumps watching people hurt each other for 2 hours. Sometimes you gotta laugh, and you know, we're looking for excitement, and excitement can be a good thing as well as a scary thing sometimes.
Scorpio Theatre, Cry Havoc 3, that's going to run February 13th to 21st at the Pump House Theatre, and I guess scorpio.ca would be a pretty good spot to go check for
all the information. Yeah. And you can pre-book your tickets there, you can buy them online, do all that if you need to. So I know that we are sold out for our opening night. Wow. However, after the opening nights for all of our shows, we have an opening night gala at our rehearsal studio, which is free if you have bought a ticket. If not, it's $5 at the door. There's live entertainment, cheap drinks, and you get to hang out with the cast and all the audience and just talk about the show. So we'd love to see anybody out to that as well.
That'd be excellent. Thanks so much for your time today, Aaron.
Thank you.